20 years of Afghanistan.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
So
really interested in what you have to say because, I mean, you're a vet and, I feel like you have a unique perspective on this. I mean, my perspective just basically comes from, what I've seen on the news. I wouldn't even say the news because I don't trust CNN and the MSNBCs of the world and
you mean
Fox.
Chris Cuomo's Italian?
Yeah, I don't trust them too, especially when it comes to foreign policy, especially when it comes to foreign policy.
God.
I don't take the
And
media's word.
they're showing their true colors this week, by the way. We'll get to that.
1000%. If there's one thing this week has taught anybody who hasn't been paying attention, I think that you knew this, I knew this, Manny, but the media loves war. I mean, just
It sells.
absolutely pro whatever they can say whatever they want about, peace and whatever, but they every time, there has been any type of threat or talk about us leaving whatever country or bringing troops back home, there's always been some type of pushback by every outlet too on both sides of the aisle. There's always some type of pushback, and we're seeing that like we are leaving Afghanistan. We have been leaving Afghanistan, and I was under the impression that it was a great thing. It's kind of disheartening to see not just the media push back on it, but like so many people kind of fall for it. Like now all of a sudden people are talking about Afghan women's rights, which don't get me wrong. I consider myself a feminist.
Yeah.
I will tell people I am a feminist, like, and I believe in equal rights for all women across the world. But like, let's not pretend that like we were out there in Afghanistan fighting for human rights. That's not the reason why we were in Afghanistan at all. The Taliban is a terrorist organization, but who's been allies with the Taliban? We have been.
We created the Taliban.
We use the Taliban to fight ISIS, ladies and gentlemen. So we have been in bed with these guys. It's just a situation where it's just like we all, both sides of the aisle, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, you will find very few people who do not agree that, hey, let's bring back our troops. Let's bring them back safely. It's a problem. We have a problem even taking care of our troops when they come back with PTSD or all these type of conditions. And, I think we all can agree that endless wars and wars for no reason are bad. The only people who still want to be out there are people who believe at this point, I don't know how you still believe it, but believe that we're fighting some type of war on terror, which we aren't doing. So Biden coming out and saying, hey, we're coming out of Afghanistan, to me is a good thing. It's a great thing. It's something that I have been preaching, that you have been preaching, that any populist or any non-interventionist, any libertarian have been preaching for the longest time now. Bring the troops home. We're doing it in one of the countries, at least we're doing it. So that's something that should be celebrated. Now, does that mean that it's going to go smoothly? No. Does that mean that there's going to be some hiccups? Yes. Does that mean that certain things are going to look bad? Yes. But like we knew this. Like I don't understand why people are surprised that this hasn't been the smoothest transition out. This is not like that area is so destabilized because of our presence and because of just the way that politics are in that area, that of course us leaving is going to cause a big stir. That's what it's going to be. And it's fooling a lot of people into thinking that like we have to be the policeman of the world and that we have to stay there for human rights reasons when we weren't even there for human rights reasons to begin with. So, just my message to anybody listening or watching would be that, hey, us leaving is a good thing. That doesn't mean that we still can't fight for equal rights across the world. It doesn't mean that we have to stop pushing for equal rights for women across the world. It doesn't mean that we can't voice our opinions and our support for Afghani women across the world. But let's not pretend that us gunning out of Afghanistan is the reason why these women are in the situation that they're in when we should have been in the first place. So, Manny, I know that you served, and I'm really anxious to hear what you have to say and what your perspective is.
Yeah, this week has been an interesting one, man. Listen, I was blessed to have gone to Afghanistan. I went to Iraq, but my brother deployed to Afghanistan. He was one of the first initial soldiers there during the surge in 2001. Obviously, I've known a lot of friends and brothers, really, that have fought in that ugly, useless war. And listen, I have a lot of thoughts. There's a cynical side to me. There's an angry side to me about this. There's there's a lot of emotions, really. There's a lot of emotions. I mean, obviously the cynical side of me will say, yeah, they're ending this war to start another one. I mean, you can never put it past the military industrial complex. I mean, they did raise the military budget. Obviously, they're not just doing that for shits and giggles. Obviously, they're going to look to bomb some other country, maybe Somalia. Who's next in the wheel of fortune of U.S. interventionism and bombings? But that being said, listen, this was something that should have ended a long time ago, at least 16 years ago. This war should have came to an end, and we've been sold a bill of goods and a bed of lies for 20 years. 20 years people have been dying in this war on both sides. Troops on both sides. Civilians on both sides. And for what? That's the part that, I found myself a lot this week looking for cause, like, for what? What is the ultimate cause of it? What is the ultimate end game of this? What was the ultimate end result of this? What was the ultimate synopsis we will have from this? And it's just, it's the same thing. It's like another Vietnam, another useless war, bloody war that cost the lives and the well-beings of thousands of American men and women for nothing. And all the while, the U.S. gets to pat itself on the back and say they're the purveyors of democracy and justice and freedom for all, even though they're imperialist and terrorists in their own right. We get to basically pat ourselves on the back and say we're the ultimate fighters of freedom. No, we're not. We're just as bad as Great Britain and the UK. We're just as bad as the Spanish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, any other empire out there throughout history that is colonized and used imperialistic tactics to, advance their own agendas and their own, political ideology or whatever. We're no different. We're the same. The thing that angers me the most, man, is just that, again, we've been in this godforsaken country for 20 years, all the lives that were lost, all the blood that was shed, and honestly, nothing was gained. Nothing was gained. What? What did we do? What did we accomplish? What did we gain? What was the end result? Nothing. For the country, for Afghanistan to be in a worse shape today than it was in 2001, in worse shape today than it was in 2001. Like, why? Why? To prop up some government, a crooked government that never had a chance of lasting? This was going to happen. Listen, this idea that, it could have been handled differently. Everybody all of a sudden became a war logistics expert, right? Like,
this could have in geopolitics all of a sudden. Yeah.
Right. All of a sudden, like, this was going to be, first of all, war is ugly. War is ugly. And there's never a good way to end a war. Find me the war that ended good. Like, everybody just shook hands. All right. Okay. Yeah, this was good, guys. All right. Yeah. No, war is ugly. War ends ugly. It's easy to start a war. It's always difficult to end a war. Always. Look back at any war throughout history. It's always difficult to end a war, especially a war like this that was built on a bed of lies and a bed of bullshit. And the amount of lives that we lost and the money that was spent, $2 trillion in 20 years. $2 trillion. Again, propping up a corrupt government. Everybody wants to sit here and throw shades at the Taliban. And listen, the Taliban they're nothing to write home about. I get it. The Taliban are evil people. But what was the Afghan government? That president that was overthrown, that left with a car and bags full of money?
Bounced.
Like, was he?
Yep.
Bounced. He was just as corrupt. He's just as bad as the Taliban. He's just as bad as the Taliban. And that's the problem. Like, we always talk about in our election system, right? How it's the worst. It's that ideology that we subscribe to when we were voting for who our next elected officials are, right? It's it's the best of the worst choices, right? And it's like it's the same with who we get in bed with on geopolitical stages, right? Like it's like we get in bed with these awful, vile people in the name of democracy. because we want to further some sort of agenda when we're really not. We're literally just doing the same thing the other side is doing it, and we're just slapping the American flag on it and calling it democracy. It's not. Anybody can sit there and tell you that it's been to Afghanistan. Anybody that's spent 5 minutes in Afghanistan, no, the Afghanistan army, the Afghan police, the Afghan government was crooked and was never going to survive. And this would have happened. This would have happened in 2016. This would have happened in 2005. This would have happened any year in the litany of years that this war has happened. This would have happened. And yes, the images are horrifying. Yes, I hated seeing what happened this week. Those scenes from the airport, it's heartbreaking seeing these people. And that's who I'm more upset. I'm upset about. I'll take that back. I'm upset at a lot of people, and I'm upset for a lot of people. Mainly, I'm upset for those civilians, those people that had their countries and their homes wrecked on a war that they didn't ask for, that they had no involvement in, that had no say in. Those people, those are the people that are suffering right now. Those are the people that are going through hell right now. That who knows may end up dying even more or end up getting slaughtered even more by this fucking heinous fucking group. Right? I'm mad for our servicemen and women. Like, I'm mad for them because how many fucking soldiers went over there, got blown up, came back in a fucking pine box, or came back luckily alive but fucked up in the head or fucked up physically? Like, for what? For what? Tell me, for what? What did we accomplish in this war? What did we gain? What did we do? Is Afghanistan better today? No, we talked about it. No, they're worse off today than they were even in 2001. Like, so yeah, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hurt. You read the Afghan papers. I recommend everybody go and Google and find the Afghan papers, and you find out the level of corruption and lies that existed in our own government over these last 20 years. They knew this, the US government that knew that this war was unwinnable, that knew that this was a big ass waste of time, and kept propping it up, kept throwing money and lives without a care for any of them, for anybody's life, for anybody's family. Just kept throwing money and lives at the problem, and they knew this war was unwinnable. And that's the biggest crime. The fact that I got to turn on CNN and hear these fucking ghouls like John Bolton and fucking Condoleezza Rice wants to put out an op-ed. George Bush wants to put on a fucking thing. These fucking war criminals, that's who you want to throw at me, CNN? That's who you want to tell me? Who the fuck cares what John Bolton thinks? This fucking bozo who lied us into war, who all of them, Cheney, Rumsfeld, all of them should be in fucking jail. All of them. Because they're all war criminals. All of them.
The fact that CNN even was like, these are the people we should have on is disgusting.
Right. Not the guy that's writing a book on that Breaking Points had on this week. Sagar and Crystal interviewed the guy that's writing a book on the Afghan papers. Not him, who's on the ground covering this war year in and year out, knows the ins and outs. An independent voice on this matter. No, we don't have him on. We'll have John Bolton on. We'll trot out General Petraeus out there. All these fucking generals, the Pentagon. Where's the Pentagon? Everybody blames, the Pentagon. The Pentagon. There's people in the Pentagon that should be fired today. Fired. Thrown on their asses. And that's the nice, and I'm being nice. Some of them deserve to be in jail. These generals that lied, that knew that this shit was bogus and kept propping it up there too. Kept Mad Dog. Remember Mad Dog was some American hero? Mad Dog Maddox. He's another one. All of them. Everybody. Both parties. Everybody's got blood on their hands. And again, I reiterate, soldiers, men and women, people, your next door neighbors, people you knew in your communities, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters. People went and fought in a war, in an unjust war, a war built on a bed of lies. And some came back in a pine box. Some came back with PTSD. Some came back fucked up physically. And for what? For what? We learned nothing from Vietnam. Vietnam was the same thing. They always say history repeats itself. No, it's true. It does. Because this is our Vietnam. This is our generation's Vietnam. And I get pissed about it, obviously, because I also served, and I knew a lot of people that fought in a heinous war. I knew a lot of people that came back with PTSD. I have a buddy of mine that committed suicide because of PTSD, because of going overseas. So yeah, this shit is real, and I hate that this war, that the lives of so many men and women are being used as a tool for advanced agendas and fucking neocon perspectives. Like, fuck off. Like, it just drives me insane. And the other thing that drives me insane about it too is $2 trillion. How many times do we hear, oh no, we can't have Medicare for all because the cost would be so much. Oh, we can't have student loan forgiveness or student debt, or we can't cancel student debt because, oh my God, look at all the money that would cost. Oh, we can't fucking, we can't fight hunger. We can't fight poverty. We can't fight homelessness because, oh, who's going to pay for that? Who's going to split the bill? When we're bombing some other fucking country, we never ask what the price tag is of that. When we're intervening in some other fucking country's political elections, we never ask what the price of that is. Never. Somehow we never ask where the money is when we're trying to bomb another country or when we're trying to throw money at the problem in Afghanistan. We never ask where the money's coming from. But somehow when it's to help us domestically, there's fucking people that live in communities across this country that have fucking potholes and shitty infrastructure and terrible, terrible systemic issues. Flint still probably doesn't have drinkable water, but no, they don't get 22 trillion. They don't get $2 trillion. No. Afghanistan does. So really? And you have the audacity to tell me that you can't do student loans forgiveness, or you can't eliminate student loans, or you can't cancel student loans, that you can't do Medicare for all?
An infrastructure bill, that people don't want to go over 2 trillion. Like literally, the number is 2 trillion that they want to.
The fact that Democrats and Republicans literally fought while people were dying, going hungry, over $1,400 measly fucking dollars in stimulus checks, while they're throwing $300 million a day in Afghanistan down the toilet.
Got to make it 1.9. Can't go over 2, baby. Can't do it.
Come on, man. That is the part. Aside from the lives lost and the damage that it was, the irreversible damage that was done to not only our men and women, but the men and women over there. That's the part that angers me the most, man. Because that is heinous. Because that shows you that these politicians don't give a fuck. And these media people don't give a fuck. And you know what? I'm also going to point the finger at us, at voters, at common folk, just like you and myself, because we continue to vote and prop both these parties and politicians alike that continue to get us into these forever endless wars. You bear the responsibility for that too. Look yourself in the mirror. Don't sit there and cheerlead this video or any other video like this. Blame yourself too, because every time that you voted, listen, Obama's got blood on his hands. Bush should be in jail. Forget blood on his hands. That motherfucker's got a fucking tidal wave of blood on his hands. That fucking war criminal. Obama's got blood on his hands, like I said. Trump's got blood on his hands. And even Biden. I gave Biden credit because it took a lot of guts to have that press conference this week and pull us out, because he couldn't have gone against his word. He could have, but I gave him credit. That's the best thing. Listen, I don't care what anything else that Biden does. Listen, I'm a staunch progressive through and through. You know that. But I will give him high marks on this. It took guts to do what he did this week and to stand by it.
Yeah.
When you could argue it's political suicide. And he stood by it. But even he has blood on his hands. He's
vice president for 8 years. I mean, he's
vice president for 8 years, and he was
against the surge back when Obama was. He said he was against the surge, but at the same time, it's not like. But here's another thing: it's not like we're just in Afghanistan. It's not like we're just bombing Afghanistan.
Right. We're bombing Somalia. We're bombing Syria. Look at the instability all across.
I'll give Biden points, I guess, for getting us out of Afghanistan. But what about everything else? And that's
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I'm giving him credit for at least sticking through Trump's initial plan to get us out.
Right. And that's the thing, Trump, and to give Trump, some type of credit, he started the withdrawal of it all. He did hand it over to the Taliban. Literally made a deal with the Taliban. That's not like me being hyperbolic, Trump handed he literally cut a deal with the Taliban.
But here's the thing. Yeah. The initial plan was to get the Taliban and the Afghan government together and for them to work out a peace agreement. Right. The Afghan government refused to deal with the Taliban.
Right.
There is a civil war. And Sagar, I know you can't stand Sagar, but Sagar said something this week or maybe he was a phrase that he borrowed, but whatever. But he said, people need to start understanding that the enemy gets a vote too. They get a vote too. It's a war. The enemy gets to say so. You may not like it. You don't want to like it, but they get a vote too. They get a say in this as well. And You can't get two parties to negotiate if one just absolutely refuses to meet anybody halfway. Forget halfway, refuses to even negotiate. And the Afghan government, that's a fact. They refuse to negotiate with the Taliban. So what do you want? What do you want the administration to do? And again, I can't stand Trump. I'm not. Listen, this isn't about Trump. This isn't about Trump right now, or our hate for Trump or whatever. It's about our foreign policy.
Past 20 years.
Our 20 years, 40 years. Our broken foreign policy.
Specifically Afghanistan.
Yeah. It's a broken system. It's a broken system. It's a system that keeps getting propped up by the media. Again, this is the biggest thing that anybody that didn't know or didn't have their ear to the street or didn't understand why we're so passionate about this. Look at the media. The media has covered themselves in neocon bullshit this entire week. Oh, how could you? That's a sign of weakness. And the media. And listen, folks, don't be so surprised. War is big business. Think the media's not banking on Afghanistan? They're banking on this shit. That's endless reels of bombing. They don't give a fuck whose lives are getting lost in this chaotic war. They don't care. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. These media executives, you think Jeff Zucker, he's not sending his kids off to fight?
Man.
The head of CNN, you think he's sending his kids off to fight in Afghanistan? No. It's your kids. It's the kids in your community that are getting off to get sold, to go fight. We can't pay college athletes because God forbid, giving a 20-year-old that much money, but we could go send a 20-year-old to go bomb Kabul.
Right.
And we could do that. We could do that. It's just, I'm angry, man. I'm angry because, again, 20 years, all the lives that were lost on both sides. And for what? For what?
For nothing. And I had this conversation the other day where it was just kind of like, I was on Instagram and, a lot of conservatives that I went to school with back in high school, like they're really against what's going on, especially military wives. They're mad at Biden for, what's going on. And I come to the realization that it's not so much that they're mad at the fact that Biden has withdrawn the troops, but they have to feel like their husbands missed birthdays, missed holidays, missed all these events for something. Like,
bro,
and a lot of it is like, you get what I'm saying? It's like,
no,
it's a reaction of like, so you're telling me that we're leaving, Afghanistan has fallen to the Taliban for what? Like, why was my husband? Why was my brother?
In 17 days, no less.
Right.
Like, people like to bring up Saigon. Yeah. Like, a lot of people brought up Saigon. Saigon fell in 1975. We left in 1973. It took 2 years, 2.5 years for Saigon to fall. Kabul fell in 17 days.
And I think a lot of people, and this is not just conservatives, but a lot of like military wives, a lot of people there had to be a reason. They can't wrap their heads around the fact that there was no reason for this outside of like, hey, military industrial complex kind of wanted to make some money on this, or hey, Afghanistan, that land is sitting on some nice natural resources that we kind of want to be in control of. And a lot of people are just having a hard time grasping that their son, husband, whatever, is just there as a pawn, and them being in Afghanistan, as weird as it sounds, gives them meaning. It gives them a purpose. It allows them to be called a hero. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like this whole
I get it.
mind fuck that the media controls. And
it's hero worship. It's hero worship.
And fools or it manipulates, these poor men and women who are back home waiting for their husbands and wives to come home. And, it's just sad, man. It's just really sad.
A little insight into me. Those who may know who've listened to the show, but I deal with a debilitating back condition. I have disc herniations and I have nerve damage in my neck and in my spine. And, I'm pretty much, I may need some sort of spinal fusion, maybe even some thoracic outlet syndrome surgery in my future here, my near future. All this because I deployed to Iraq. So I fought for my country, did the hoorah American patriotism thing for a year in a war that was unjust. Talk about another disaster, Iraq, in a war that was another war that was sold on a bed of lies. And I came back with a fucked up back. I can't do half of the things that I used to be able to do. I can't even play with my kids the way I would like to, or involved with them in their sports and their athletics as I'd like to, because I came back fucked up. And I don't regret any of it because, hey, I signed a contract. It was some of the best years of my life. I made some of the best friends, brothers that I will go to my grave saying these are some of the best friends I've ever made. So I don't regret any of that. But I think that's another thing that drives me insane, that I fucking went and I came back with a fucked up back. And I'm fortunate because I don't have PTSD. I'm lucky by comparison, right? But I came back with a fucked up back. And for what? And for what? Nothing. There has not been a day in, what day is 2021? There's not been a day in 12 years that I've been without pain, some sort of pain. And I don't care how much money I make. I don't care the level of success that I have doing this, whether this show blows up, whether podcasting in general blows up, whatever, I win the lottery, whatever. I don't care how much level of success, money, fame, whatever I get. I will trade all of that to be healthy and happy and be pain-free. And I'm sure a lot of vets feel the same way. And then it hits home when you see shit like this week. These neocons, these fucking bozos, these ghouls. Again, John Bolton. I gotta listen to fucking John Bolton basically tell the American people they're wrong because this isn't what they should be wanting. They should want more military intervention in Afghanistan. This guy who should be literally sitting in Guantanamo Bay as we speak. It just doesn't sit right with me, man. It doesn't sit right with me. And again, the media, the bed of lies that they continue to put out there and to help these politicians and their propaganda and again, both parties have blood on their hands. Both of them. This isn't left, right. This isn't conservative, liberal. Both parties have blood on their hands. The Pentagon has blood on their hands. The media has blood on it. Anybody who perpetuated these lies and these propaganda for 20 years, you have blood on your hands. And look at yourself. And voters who continue to vote for these politicians and vote for these fucking neocons and neolibs, you have blood on your hands too. And that may seem hyperbolic. That may seem like, oh, how can you say that? No, it's true. Because if you vote for people like Ted Cruz, the Dan Crenshaws of the world,
don't get me started with him. Jesus Christ.
You have blood on your hands. Yeah. You're just as bad as John Bolton. You weren't making the decisions, but you're basically endorsing everything that they do. And it's beyond me, man. And again, it bothers me because now all of a sudden everybody cares about Afghan women. Right. Now everybody cares about the people of Afghanistan. No, you don't give a fuck about any. You don't give a fuck about Afghan women. You don't care about women's rights in Afghanistan. You don't give a shit about any of that. These back to brunch liberals now, they care about Afghan women. The fuck off. No, you don't. No, you don't. You couldn't. You wouldn't have known Kabul from Madison, Wisconsin 2 days ago. You don't care. You don't care. You care now because the media is showing you pictures and horrifying footages. Oh no. As you're having your brunch and you're drinking your mimosas, now you feel horrified. Fuck off. No, you don't. You don't care about these people. Some of these people, these rich white liberals, I'm going to say it, rich white liberals who don't have family members that would be caught dead being in the military. Now they're horrified. Now they feel some type of way. Look at the mom that probably lost some lost a kid, maybe two, to war. Or the wife or the mom or the sister or the brother that has to see their fucking loved one come back and have fucking PTSD or have a fucking steel rod in their leg. For what? Democracy? Nah, man. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And again, I'll reiterate this. The media, the Pentagon, the military-industrial complex, both parties, voters, all of you have blood on your hands. All of you. No. Yeah, you have blood on your hands. Yes. Everybody that continued to perpetuate this nonsensical war for as long as we did, you have blood on your hands. Taliban left in 2000. You know, Osama bin Laden left in 2002. He was gone. 2002. Read the Afghan papers. He was gone. And the American government knew he was gone in 2002. Fled to Pakistan. They didn't know where. Some believe that he was still coming back and forth, but for the most part, he was out of country in 2002. That war was won in 6 months. And we continue, and then and of course we get into bed with the Afghan government,
Right.
And all you conservatives and all you libertarians out there that all focus on the purse and the budget and spending, and all that, right? Part of that $2 trillion was to endorse and prop up the Afghan government that folded like a cheap suit in 17 days.
And the military too.
And the military. And yet with a straight face, you tell me we can't do Medicare for all. We can't cancel student debt.
Right.
Student loan debt. We have a homelessness crisis in this country. We have a wage gap crisis in this country. Right? You don't think $2 trillion would have gone a long way in fixing some of that? Infrastructure. There's some places in this country that have infrastructure akin to some World War II destroyed areas of Europe. You don't think $2 trillion would have helped that? People in Flint that died. Their local government poisoned them. You don't think $2 trillion would have helped fix the water systems in Flint? You don't think so? Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
But, hey, that wasn't what was on the agenda, right? Nah, it was democracy in Afghanistan. If the American government is so concerned with atrocities and human rights atrocities, why are we still in bed with Saudi Arabia?
Thank you.
Why?
Thank you. Yep.
The Saudi prince. Have we held their feet to the fire for Jerome Khashoggi's murder? By the way, but we care about atrocities.
Afghan women. What about Saudi women?
What about the atrocities that are going on all over the world? In Somalia, in Myanmar, aka Burma, all these things. I'll give you chapter and verse human rights violations and issues going on in different countries around the world. Look at the atrocities going on in Venezuela. We're not bombing Venezuela.
Well, we already fucked up Venezuela.
Yeah, but we'll be here another 2 hours talking about Venezuela alone. But yeah, it just, man, to wrap up, it gets me upset, man, because again, it's not even so much because I fought, because again, I'm one of the lucky ones. I came back without PTSD. I came back without a fucking rod in my leg or a fucking prosthetic arm or something, and I didn't get to go to Afghanistan. But it's not even about the fact that I served. If you're not, as an American citizen, forget what your ties are to the military or whatever, as an American citizen, if you think back at the cost and the cost, not just monetarily, but the cost on lives and stability that this war cost, how are you not outraged at this? And the sickening thing about it is this will be in the news cycle for a week or two, maybe a month, and then we'll move on to something else.
Yep.
We'll move on to the next story. Maybe the Delta variant becomes worse, and then that'll COVID will regain the spotlight. Maybe another black person will get shot by the police, and that'll regain the spotlight. I mean, it will just go on to something else. And all the outrage, all the logistics experts, all the the supporters of Afghan women rights and all that stuff will go by the wayside. And secretly, the U.S. government and the military-industrial complex will fund another war. Because we don't learn from history. We don't learn from history.
That's what I'm worried about is the fact that, we're out of Afghanistan now, but what's next? And, it's up to us as the people. And you're right, man. Like the people who
Somalia, that's next. Venezuela, that's next. Name a country. I mean, really, it's a wheel of fortune. Just literally spin it, and wherever it lands, that's what we bomb next.
And it's and this goes back to the media too, where the media is doing us a disservice, where it's up to us to keep ourselves informed. But when the media on your television is constantly misinforming you, how do you expect a public to be informed? They're doing not everyone's like you and I, Manny, and the people watching this, where like we go out and we seek independent media that we trust and that we vet And, not everybody's like that. And everybody has, the passion for politics. Not everybody has the time for politics. There's, we are invested in this and we're heavily invested in this. But for someone who like could only watch like 5 to 10 minutes of on a television screen, what's going on in this world, for CNN to be doing such a disservice, for MSNBC to be doing such a disservice, Fox News we can get into for hours. But, the media to me is just as culpable. And I know it sounds
Absolutely.
crazy because they're
Absolutely.
not drafting any legislation. They're not the politicians making any decisions. But if you want to talk about, an accessory to murder or whatever, like the media, the Jake Tappers of the world, the Chris Cuomos of the world, all these people who you watch on a nightly basis, who you might agree with on Black Lives Matter, who you might agree with on social issues, who go hard for, certain issues that us on the left might agree with. These people, at the end of the day, are there to serve a conglomerate that is making money off of the backs of the military industrial complex. And they should be held responsible for this. It is absolutely disgusting. And without an honest and true media, this country is not going to fix itself at all. Like this goes back to the problems we have socially in this country, with between Black Lives Matters and just everything, every problem that we have stems from the media, which is why someone like Donald Trump was probably elected in the first place, was because of the distrust of media, and rightfully so. If there's one thing that I don't disagree with Trump supporters on, is the fact that you can't trust this media. And the biggest scar in my mind is their coverage on our foreign policy. And to see the media kind of just make this out to be like it's the worst thing in the world, that Biden's, making a mistake, and that we should, like you said, the fact that John Bolton is on as like a freaking source of like objectiveness is
Condoleezza Rice published an op-ed.
It's insane. It is literally insane. It's like having Hannibal Lecter on. Like, should we be eating humans?
Like even better. The Lincoln Project. The Lincoln Project filled with nothing but Republicans that served on the Bush administration, that and all were complicit in the lies and the bullshit of this war.
Right.
And the fact that liberals, all because they wanted to dunk on Donald Trump, or they wanted to win the resistance against Donald Trump, they got in bed with the Lincoln Project.
Yep.
And these fucking ghouls.
What
do you have to say for yourself?
Who created this fucking monster? Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm not the type of person. I've always agreed that the media has been toxic in this country. I don't like getting into that conversation with conservatives, though, because I don't think they are able to distinguish the differences between CNN and Fox News, and I think there is a huge difference. But for particular topic, particularly foreign policy, it's all the same. You can both sides be on this.
The difference is subtlety. Fox News doesn't hide what they're about. They're propaganda. Right. While CNN paints it as news, even though they're propagandas as well. So, and MSNBC, they might as well be Fox News light, just on the opposite side.
They try to be.
It's disgusting, man. It's disgusting, man.
It's just for an accessory to this. It's the media. I think the media has played such a horrible role in our presence overseas, and they're just as culpable. And I don't know how you hold the media responsible, but something has to be done.
And you know what upsets me more, and a lot of things upset me apparently, but you know what upsets me even more, right? There's a lot of voters that just don't pay attention to foreign policy. It doesn't. And I get it to a certain extent, right? Because when you've got issues going on in your community,
and it's confusing.
It's confusing, right? Because you don't know what to disseminate. You don't know what the fuck. You can't tell the difference between Taliban and Al Qaeda and ISIS and who the fuck. It's confusing, right? Plus, you got a lot of plus people live in fucked up. Listen, the country's fucked up in a lot of ways, right? And if you live in Flint, you think you got time to figure out what the hell is going on in Kabul? No, you got your own issues at home. You got your own Kabul at home, right? So I get it, but if you're one of those folks that's fortunate to live in a decent area where, listen, every area has issues, right? Every state has issues and their own problems. And I'm not trying to minimize one area versus the other. But if you're one of those people that are living in an area where you're lucky enough to not have as many of the issues as, say, this city compared to that city, foreign policy is important. And I think voters should understand that. And this is why this is important, because these things affect you. They don't affect you directly, but they do affect you, and they do affect a lot of what they affect media. They affect politicians and who funds them. Like, foreign policy is important. It is very important.
Yeah.
And we need to pay attention to this shit, and we need to understand, and we need to start putting in politicians in DC that are anti-war and anti-forever wars on top of that. And this this interventionist ass fucking agenda that a lot of politicians and a lot of government officials are with. You know, we need to end this shit, man, because again, the cost is too great.
I agree.
On both sides.
I think it's hard to overcome the hero worship that, you know, our country has towards our troops. You send troops out to war and it's like, oh, they're fighting for our freedom. They're fighting for our country. And you have a lot of people,
another thing. That's another thing. I don't mean to cut you off, but this shit is triggering, man. You know, every single one of you remember I said how people like you and I have blood on their hands. You think you don't have blood on your hands because you think you do the right thing in an airport. You salute for a platoon of soldiers as they come through a gateway or a gate or a terminal. You know, you think you applaud people because you may have bought them a drink at a bar one day, or because, you know, you're a business and you have a military discount. You think you're without blame. No. This country, we celebrate our soldiers and we prop them up as literally tools and props. We don't give a fuck about soldiers, because if we gave a fuck about soldiers, we care about what the situation in the VA is. There wouldn't be one fucking homeless vet in this country right now if we actually cared about our soldiers. There wouldn't. But no, we don't care enough. But, you know, we tell ourselves we care. We tell ourselves that we're okay and we're good people because, you know, we give them a 15% discount at Applebee's, or because, you know, a vet can go buy sneakers at Foot Locker with his 20% discount, or, you know, because we say thank you for your service. Nah, that's not caring about vets. If you cared about vets, you wouldn't vote for politicians who want to put our vets and the lives of these vets in danger, and their families by definition too. Because these families are with the ones that are affected as well. You know, imagine a mom that sent her kid off to fucking Afghanistan, and her kid comes back and fucking a steel rod in his fucking leg. You don't think she's affected? You don't think she has skin in the game? Or a wife, or a partner, husband, whatever. You don't think they're affected? Yeah, of course they are. So don't tell me that you care about vets. Oh, I support the vets. We support our vets. No, you don't.
Well, it's not just that for me. It's the hero worship that justifies us having troops in these occupations to begin with, right? So if you look at these troops as heroes, if you look at them as, like, you know, these arbiters of, like, freedom, you know, that they're protecting our rights, they're protecting our way of life, of course it's going to be harder for you to look at the situation and go, we shouldn't be there. And I think the media and both parties, but more the Republican Party, but both parties have done a job where it's just kind of like, if you question, you know, what our troops are doing, you are an awful human being, you are un-American. And it's like, I can separate the two. Like, people have to be able to separate the two. And it's okay to, like, say, hey, like, my husband, my wife's in the military, but they're not fighting for my freedom. Like, that's not an insulting thing to say. It's a realistic thing that people have to come to the conclusion where it's just like, yo, the people who were in Afghanistan for 20 years, like, they weren't there fighting for your freedom. Like, they just weren't. And that doesn't diminish the fact that they weren't brave for signing up for the military. That doesn't diminish the fact that they, you know, it takes a lot of fucking guts for someone to stand up and go, you know, I'm gonna go across the world to do something. And if they're in their hearts, they think they're fighting for freedom, in their hearts, whatever the reasons were, that takes a lot of bravery in my mind.
Listen,
but it doesn't change the fact that they weren't there fighting for freedom. It doesn't change the fact that they weren't there being used as political pawns by our fucking politicians. Yeah. It is what it is. And we have to stop this blind hero worship of our troops, or else we're never going to come to the realities of the situation that we're in these fucking places that we shouldn't be in. The longer that we, like, idolize the U.S. military, the easier it is for politicians to do these things over our heads, because they can always justify, like, oh, well, you don't love America, you don't love the troops. No, like, you can do both at the same time. You absolutely can.
But it's a part of the
yeah.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's a part of it's a grift, man. All of it is a grift, right? Like, it's a part of the game that politicians have sold you on. It's identity politics. I mean, this has ties to identity politics, right?
Yes.
Because again, it's about deflecting. It's about deflecting from the real issue and the real problem and making it about, well, you don't care about troops because you dare say something, you know,
exactly,
whatever. Well, no, like, listen, I served in the Army for 5 years. I didn't fight for anybody's fucking freedom. You think I was in Iraq fighting for freedom? No, I was trying to get a paycheck, and I was trying to make something of myself and go to college for free. not for free, but you know what I mean? Like, try to go to college. Like,
Right.
you know, that's what I was doing. And along the way, you know, if somebody wants to thank me for their service, I appreciate it. Great. But I didn't do anything. Look, real heroes don't consider themselves heroes. They don't call themselves hero. They just do it.
Yeah.
They just do it.
Yeah, you do. But then you also have people who are signing up for the military because they want to be heroes.
And sure, there's part of that. There's in any profession, there's that hero worship aspect to it. But you know, that's always going to be a thing. You're never going to escape that, man. I'm talking about the real men and women that just do this shit and, you know, don't get any credit. You'll never hear their names on the news unless they're in the pine box, or when we want to give them a 2-minute standing ovation at a game, and we prop them up, then we'll wheel their asses out there in uniform and yay, we care about our troops, even though we vote for politicians who want to fund the military industrial complex and, you know, prop up lies and propaganda and whatever. But you know, it's angering, man. It's angering because then I like I said, I think about all the lives that were impacted on both sides, all the men and women that lost their lives, that family members, families that were wrecked, people that came back with PTSD. PTSD is such an ugly, sad thing, man. And how many of our soldiers, how many of our men and women came back with PTSD, fucked up in the head, dying for help? For what? For a fucking government that we propped up, that we spent $2 trillion training and equipping and, you know, enabling to quit. And I'll say it, quit in 17 days. It just don't seem right, man. And then I got a media telling me that basically I'm wrong for applauding this, wrong for cheering this. You know, nah, man. And listen, like I said, I gave Biden credit because it took guts to have that speech, to do what he did, because Biden could have pulled back, Biden could have reneged, and he could have been back to, you know, interventionism and, oh, well, we got to keep the troops there. See, it's been a disaster. He could have succumbed to the media pressure. He didn't. He kept by it. That took guts. And I'm not a big Joe Biden fan. And Joe Biden has blood on his hands too. But for this week, for this particular thing, I give him credit. Now, the cynical aspect of me will tell you that, yeah, he's just doing this so he can go bomb another country.
Right.
That's a part of the story too.
Right.
Of course. And if you have that thought process, you are well within your right.
Yeah.
But I'll give him credit. It took guts because Obama didn't do this shit. And Obama ran on getting us out of Afghanistan and Iraq. Obama didn't do this shit.
He did.
You know?
That's for sure he did.
Think about that. The president that we all hate and loathe with our passion, he did the one thing Bush couldn't do. He did the one thing Obama couldn't do. He did the one thing. He got us out of Afghanistan. Trump gets credit too here. I know people want to hate Trump. I listen, I can't stand the guy either. He's a fucking moron. But he at least had enough wherewithal to at least start the fucking process.
Right.
And listen, did he have his own agendas? And he hired John Bolton too, so he gets no high marks here either. He's got blood on his hands too, just by association. But at the very least, we're fucking done with this war, man. We're done. It needed to happen. It's 20 years. It's far too long. We both can agree on that. A lot of lives were lost. A lot of money was spent. A lot of money that could have gone to other things, Medicare for all. But, you know, and honestly, I beg, and I'm talking to the listeners. I'm talking to whoever's out there that's watching us right now. I'm talking to you, man. I hope that you learn from this. You learn from history, and you learn the ugliness and the horrors of war. People say they know, but they don't really truly know. They don't know because it doesn't affect you. If it doesn't touch you, if it doesn't affect you directly, you don't know. You just see what's on the news and, oh, it sounds bad and it's horrible, but you don't really know until it affects you. Learn from this. Learn. And I challenge politicians to learn from this. They won't. It's wishful thinking, but to learn from this. And these logistic experts too that think that, you know, ending a war is just as easy as just pressing a button. Listen, no war has ended easily. Even World War II, which we've lionized and, you know, propped up there as this great achievement in American democracy, and in a lot of respects it is. But, you know, even World War II ended ugly. You know, Europe was blown half to hell, and we gave half of it to the fucking Russians and started a Cold War. Did that end in a great way? Korea's still at war. People don't realize that. The Korean War is still going on. It's just at a ceasefire. At any given moment, hell, we could be having this conversation right now and that war will pop off. Any given moment. Still
Yeah.
going. It's still a civil war. No war has ended pretty. None. So any idiot, so don't let these assholes on TV tell you that, I would have done that. No, you wouldn't have. Any president, Republican, Libertarian, Conservative, Progressive, any president that tried to do it the same way would have ran into the same issues.
Yep.
That's it.